Hey everybody, welcome to our Mahoney Valley Sports Show. I'm editor of Mahoney Matters, Chris Pugh. Sports guy Mike Brown with us. Hey Mike, how's it going?
It's going great, Chris.
Good. Hey, we were just talking about this in the pre-show. Some interesting moves. This is the time of season where we make our division assignments for next year. And again, Mike's reported this. We're going up to 7 divisions in some sports, so those always seem to change, but they're changing even more now with the more divisions.
Mhm.
And Mike, there was two things that kind of came out. I wanted to focus on. You had a story that appeared in Sunday's Mahoney Matters, talking about football, and you kind of noted Poland going from 4 to 5,
Yeah,
and about how this could really have a significant impact in maybe even the Division 5 playoff race next year. What'd you find there?
yeah, absolutely. Poland, you think about that great tradition. They've won a state title in their past, and that was in D3. And now, if Poland's going to be a D5 in football starting this fall, and I think they'll really do well as a D5 school. Now they're in there with South Range. I believe that South. I think South Range is still a 5. I'll have to check on that one. But Poland in 5 will really be really a tough out for anybody who plays them. I think that's a really good move for them.
Yeah, and I guess we can kind of go back into the talk we've had in the past about going to 7 divisions. I mean, in some ways, it's really exciting because now you've got more state champions.
Hmm.
Maybe more teams get the chance that haven't had that in the past. I don't know. Like I used to work in Massillon, and Massillon, I guess is its own vein and how they do sports. But it was funny when they started changing divisions. Massillon made such a big deal about, hey, we're Division 1. We want to be state champions again in
Right.
Division 1.
Yeah.
And I know there was a little bit of frustration when they had to drop down a little bit.
Hmm.
Do you think for some of these more traditional powers, teams have been around forever, teams have had good teams forever, is Poland happy to go to 5? Or they're like, man, it kind of stinks we have to go to 5? What do these schools look at what division they're in? Like, is dropping down division anything that they should be ashamed about,
No,
or
no, I think that's a great thing for Poland. It's better to be a big school in Division 5 than a small school in Division 4 as far as the playoffs go, in my opinion, anyway. So I
oh, that's
think
good.
it's a
Yeah.
win-win, especially when you have a tradition steep program like they have in football. I think that's a great move for them.
Okay. Very good. So yeah, and so you're still a fan of the 7 divisions? I'm
Oh
not quite
yeah, I
sure
sure
about
do.
it.
Yeah, I really do, and I'm glad that in most of the winter sports and some of the spring sports next year they're going to have 7 divisions. So I think that's a good thing. That's anything that helps the kids. I think that's a good thing. Hey, I think I've told you I was on a team that finished 9-1 and finished third in our region. We didn't even make the playoffs. So I'm glad these
Yeah.
kids get their opportunity. When you have a good team, you're going to get your chance now. And I'll take the first round blowouts for the chance to get teams in that may have gotten hot late in the year, may have had a loss or two early, but got hot late in the year. And I want them to get in the have their chance in the playoffs.
Okay. Another school that, and again, a lot of schools have changed divisions.
Hmm.
Mike spotlighting some of the ones that have attracted most discussion.
Yeah.
Kind of interesting, Canfield. They've always been a really good girls basketball team, state
Yeah.
power.
Oh yeah.
Uh, they're moving down too. From what you're hearing, it's like from what Division 3 to 4.
Yeah. The state released a preliminary. Now, again, this is the keyword preliminary divisional breakdown for the 7 divisions that
Mhm.
boys and girls basketball have next year. And Canfield in boys and girls is going to be a D4. And when you
Wow.
think, they're going to drop from D2 to D4. And I tell you what, when I think of Canfield boys and girls basketball in D4, whoo, man, is that a great opportunity for them? I mean, because they have a great tradition, and I think they have a chance to go a long, long way in most years and boys and girls basketball in D4.
That's quite the drop going from 2 to 4. Was there
Yeah,
uh, just a change in the way they numbered?
well, I think everything fell right for them because the girls made the Division 4 cutoff by 2 girls. and the
Oh, wow.
boys but they were really close. So again, it goes back to what I was saying. I'd rather be the big school in a smaller division than a small school in a bigger division. So as far as enrollment goes,
Do ADs ever look at that? But it's funny because when you talk about the boys and girls, it's every boy and girl, not just the athletes or
right?
everything.
Yeah.
Do ADs ever look at that and say, "Oh man, hopefully we can get a couple more to, or a couple less or something"? I don't know.
That's a good question. I don't know. You'd have to. I'm not sure a school could actually do that in advance because that's a number that changes every 2 years. The cutoff
Okay.
change every 2 years. So I'm not sure on that one, Chris.
I could just imagine making a great scandal movie where, like, maybe there's a high school NIL that pays off this big family to go to private school, so they knock down a couple of students so they can get into a smaller division. Yeah. Well, when I get around to writing the movie, maybe that'll be the movie I write. Who knows?
Yeah,
It
there you
should
go.
be good.
I will say this, Chris, getting back to Massillon and football, I would think even though they're D2, they wouldn't trade that D2 state title they won this past fall
Right.
for anything. Where D1, that was some pretty tough sledding. But they finally got that state title in D2 this past fall, and I don't think they'd give that up.
Well, and I kind of wonder too. I mean, you look at like teams like Hoban and some of the other Catholic
Yeah.
schools. I guess maybe 30, 40 years ago, there was like this stigma saying, hey, you want to be in that big school division. But,
Mhm.
I mean, think even back to St. Vincent St. Mary when LeBron played for
Yeah.
them. I mean, they never were Division One. And, that
Mhm.
may have been probably one of the best, if not best, high school basketball teams ever. And
Yeah.
weren't they what Division 2 or 3? I think, right?
I believe so. Yeah, and one of the things when they go to the 7 divisions in basketball next year, I'm not sure it's every sport, but I do know in basketball, if you want to go up to D1, you can do that. If you're a D3
Oh,
power, D2 power, and you want to go up and play with the big boys in D1, you can do that. You have to notify the state by such and such date. But yeah, you have that option. So those power teams that want to take that on, they can do that starting next year.
and this is the first time they can do that.
Well, I think that's actually existed before with the 4 division basketball setup, but I know it's still there for the 7 division format they're going to go to next year. So, that could be interesting. I don't know if anybody will bite that off on
Yeah,
something like that
yeah,
or not, but it'll be interesting to see anyway.
yeah. I don't know if anybody would really want to do that, but it's
Yeah,
interesting that options out there. So
right. Yep.
very good. So yeah, I mean, check. When we get them, we will publish um, the full results from OHSSA, and then we'll take a look for next week to see if anything jumps out. But again, the Poland and Canfield were ones that kind of caught our attention right away. They
Right.
stuck out pretty much there. Wanted to take a look at a couple of Cleveland sports. Let's start with the Cavs first of all. The Cavs had a noteworthy game. I mean, I'll be honest, not the most. How do we say this? The Magic are a lot better team than they were. They had a really good
Yeah,
season.
they've come a long way.
Yeah, but I mean, I think if you looked at that Cavs Magic series going into it, you probably wouldn't have predicted a 7 game final. I think some people were disappointed with how the Cavs played.
Mhm.
2 of the games in Orlando, they got beat up pretty good.
Yep.
And I'll be honest, yesterday they were down by as many as 18 in the second
Yeah.
quarter.
Mhm.
The Cavs came back to win. And I mean, first of all, let's say, hey, good job by the Cavs. Donovan Mitchell had 50
Yep.
on game 6, 39 in game 7.
Yeah.
Very noteworthy. I mean, one of probably the best playoff performances in Cavs history. And
Yeah.
when you have LeBron and Kyrie Irving playing for you, that's
Yeah.
pretty notable.
Yeah.
So I don't want to take anything away from the Cavs. They played well. Good job, Donovan Mitchell. They finally got the shooting under them, and they played much better defense as the game
Yes,
went
they
on.
did. Yeah.
But here's my issue. They are going up against Boston. A lot of people are projecting the Celtics to sweep the Cavs. I think the Cavs could make it into a 6 game series. Maybe I'm being openly optimistic, but not many people are picking the Cavaliers to win this series.
Mhm.
you can't always be NBA champions. That's why there's only one champion and there's 30-some teams in the league. I'll tell you, Mike, I'm a little bit frustrated. Man, if the Cavs lost that game yesterday, you may have lost Mitchell. You may have lost your coach. I don't know what's happening. You know, I'm sure if the Cavs were listening to this, they would be yelling at me, going, "Why don't we focus on this exciting series against the Celtics that are coming up?"
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just sitting here, and I'm a little depressed now, to be honest with you, because they're. What's the path forward? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, hopefully they shock the world and beat Boston, or hopefully they win a couple games in the series. But I'll tell you, they've got a young team. They've got good young players. They've got probably one of the best or top 5 players in the NBA in Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah.
And I don't see this being a title team. And you could sit there and say, well, we're trying, and maybe Mobley and Garland would get better next year. Let's see what we could do. But I'm sitting here saying, what can they do to overcome that hill?
Right.
I mean, what would you do if you're the Cavs where, say you lose, you look okay, and let's say you lose in 5 or 6 games this next series. What's the path forward? I mean, if you're a title team, you need to keep Donovan Mitchell, but
Yeah.
what can you add to that?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think the 1 forward position, I think, is an area of need still for the Cavs. And, I will say this, they brought that toughness in game 7, and they need to play that kind of defense. Isaac Okoro has played really well defensively. So that may have made the difference yesterday in that game, especially the defense he played in the second half of that game. But I think the Cavs, and in this, it's no secret. I think a lot of people have mentioned this. They need that physical presence inside. And one thing we forget, Chris, is the Cavs won those last 2 games of that series without one of their All Stars playing. Or I take that back. They won the game 7, and they played in game 6 without one of their All Stars. So, and they managed to win that series. That I think they're in a window now where they need to strike, and I think there's still 1 or 2 pieces away now. How you address that and deal with the cap, I'm not sure, but that's where they're at. There's a lot of teams. The Knicks are one of them, and obviously Boston's the kingpin in the East. But I think the Knicks have actually probably taken a little bit bigger jump with the same kind of roster that the Cavs also have. So they're going to have to be creative in the offseason. And the one thing I'll say, looking forward to the Cavs Boston series, the Cavs did play well in the regular season against the Celtics. And sometimes, matchups, you look at these rosters and say, oh, yeah, they're definitely the underdog. Boston would have the home court advantage, which is a big thing in the NBA in the playoffs. But, the Cavs, they match up okay with the Celtics. Now, are they going to beat the Celtics? Probably not. But I think it could be an entertaining series. We'll see how it goes.
Well, and if you have a guy like a Donovan Mitchell, that helps you.
Yes.
I mean, that kind of evens the score up a little bit.
Yeah.
The issue is just the depth and everything. I mean,
right.
Boston's. I mean, Donovan Mitchell's got to play out of his mind for 6, 7 games next
and
series.
And 2 or 3 other guys are going to have to play really well. That's the key, because Mitchell will probably get his, but you need that second and third scorer to step up on a consistent basis. Right. And I think that hurt them in their losses in Orlando. I mean, you need 3 guys scoring, because teams will take away your best, or they'll try and take away your best scorer. Mitchell is so prolific; it's hard to take him away. But you need that second and third scorer to step up, and they need to play. We talked about this a lot, Chris. When you get in the playoffs, you got to play defense. You don't see that much in the regular season, but you really got to amp it up and play really good defense in the playoffs. You see those scores come down, and a lot of the scores are below 100 in the playoffs. So they're going to have to play the kind of defense they did in the second half against Orlando, and they're going to need to get a second and third scorer to step up, I think, to have a shot in the Boston series.
Well, and let me throw you a wild, and again, I know, why am I talking about the offseason? We're still in the playoffs. But I got a wild one for you. Here's my issue with the Cavs. Okay, even if you, and I think if they if Donovan Mitchell wants to stay with the Cavs, they definitely would keep him.
Hmm.
I guess the concern I'm having here when thinking about it is just saying, okay, if you want to keep Donovan Mitchell for a long time, what do you do?
Yeah.
Look at LeBron James. I know LeBron James is not the player he was 5 years ago. I know. I mean, he's the oldest player in the NBA right now, which I didn't know of until the other day. He's got a son, Bronny James, which I don't. Bronny James definitely isn't LeBron James, but Bron wants to play with his son. The Cavs got the 20th pick in the draft. If I'm the Cavs, assuming Bronny's still available at 20, which he's still very raw. I think he probably would be, unless some other team has the same idea that Cavs have.
Hmm.
I'd pick Bronny James at 20.
Yeah.
And I would go up to LeBron and say, hey, buddy, we've got a pretty good team. We
Yeah.
need somebody to get there.
Yeah.
Could you play for us for a year at a lower salary? I mean, the Cavs
Right.
don't have a ton of salary cap room.
Yeah. I
I
think
think,
a lot of teams may propose that exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Teams
well,
that are
I'm
right on the cusp, and you add LeBron, and hey, you're right there now.
well, and again, the key is his son. He's kind of kept open mind if he's going to declare for the draft. I
Yeah.
mean, he went to the transfer portal,
Yeah.
but he's also opened his mind to the draft. So you could, if you're any team in the NBA, pick his son, and
Yep.
LeBron wants to play with his son.
That's right.
It's a sneaky way of getting around it. Now, here's the issue: LeBron is expected to kind of opt out of his contract. He's not making a ton of I'm leaving Lakers or whatever, but it's an option. I think a lot of it also too depends on Lakers fired their coach the other day, so it depends on who they would get as coach
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking at the draft order. Lakers have a 17th pick. So if I'm the Lakers, I definitely pick Bronny there and then say, hey, stay here, bud. You can play with your son.
Yeah.
But if that doesn't happen, man, if I'm Cleveland, I do that because, Mike, the concern I'm having is what do you do to improve your team unless you're counting on the fact that Garland takes a major step forward or Mobley takes a major step forward?
Yeah.
You said this beforehand. They're kind of stuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They're in that window, and I think the next move or two they make in the next year or two, whatever that's going to be, is going to be paramount for their future, as far as being right up there and challenging for everything. Now they're going to have to be really creative to do that. And Dan Gilbert will spend the money. The Cavs spend the money. They spend with the best of them. But they're going to have to be real creative around the cap, and that's anybody's guess how you do that.
Yeah, I'm taking another look at these draft. Now, there's a draft lottery, so that's not set yet. But San Antonio's up there.
Yeah,
Teams like Memphis are up there.
yeah,
Utah has a early pick. Man, NBA draft could be really interesting. Golden State has a lottery pick.
yeah.
Man, there's some teams up there that I would
Oh,
just sit
yeah.
there and
They
say,
can get healthy real fast. Yep,
oh,
yep.
and like I said, the NBA draft is such a crapshoot anyway, unless you have a number one pick.
Right.
Man, you grab Bronny somewhere there. Again, I'm not sure if Bronny's ever going to be a star, but you got a guy you could develop. And again, what a carrot you can put in front of LeBron, saying, "Hey, if you want to play for your son, come play here."
If I'm the Lakers, I take Bronny. I make a preemptive strike there and draft him, and LeBron stays. So, but
Well,
that's just me saying that.
well, here's what I'm looking at. I mean, Memphis has, and Memphis has been kind of a mess. John Morant got suspended and everything, but Memphis has got a really young team.
Yeah,
They've got the seventh best chance to get number one pick. Now, I wouldn't pick Bronny one, but what I'm saying is you got teams like Memphis, who, if everything is okay, John, they're a playoff team. Utah is a playoff team.
yep,
They're in the lottery. Golden State. I mean, there was a story out there saying that Golden State literally called the Lakers at the trade deadline and said, hey, would LeBron be open to a trade here?
yeah, yep.
San
Well, he
Antonio.
probably liked that because he'd stay in California. So I don't know. It's going to be a really interesting off season in
Yeah.
regard to LeBron and his son, and what team they end up on.
Yeah, I'm not a huge NBA fan as much as I used to be, but anytime you get in the off season, you get into what may or may not happen. It's kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, Same thing with baseball. I'm not the baseball fan I used to be, but man, I was going this season going, the Guardians aren't going to do anything. I mean, they may contend for a division, but where's their hitting and where's all this other stuff? Man, Guardians are scoring runs.
Yeah.
Guardians
Yep.
have a great record. I
Yep.
mean,
One of the best records in baseball. Yep.
what's the difference with their offense this year? I mean, they've got similar guys, right? I mean, it's not like
Yeah. Well, I think
they're trying Babe Ruth.
I think Quan has developed into a really big time all star, and they've got good enough pitching. Even though they've had a tons of injuries to that pitching staff. That's a whole different looking staff than what they've had, and they're still doing a good job. And I think they've got like a grittiness about the Guardians. They, and I think they're out to prove something. And I think it's a really good story because they have one of the lowest payrolls in Major League Baseball, and look at what they're doing. They almost I think they have almost as good a record as that was the Yankees, I believe, or so who's got the Yankees have an unbelievable payroll. So good for the Guardians.
Yeah, I'm taking a look at some of their stats. I mean, there's been times in previous years where they just haven't hit at all.
Yeah.
But Quan's, again, we're recording this on Monday. So as of
Yep.
Monday, he's hitting 353.
Yep.
Um, you know,
And
11.
Naylor gets he gets a lot of key hits for them as well. So yep.
Yeah. Naylor's, again, it's welcome baseball to 2024. Not a lot of people are hitting great average wise,
Hmm.
but Naylor's 271,
Yep.
8 homers,
Yeah.
26 RBIs, if I'm
Yeah.
reading this
Think
right.
about it. We're into early May, and he's got 8 home runs already. That's pretty good because a lot of times you don't see those home runs start till you start to get to the warmer months. So he's got 8 in basically in April. So that's pretty
Yeah.
good.
Well, and you look, Jose Ramirez's average is down a little bit, but
Right. He's traditionally a slow starter. When it heats up, that's when
yeah.
he goes on a tear. So you can expect that to get better.
Well, he leads the team in RBIs. Naylor has good stats
Yep.
too.
Yep. Yep.
It's just, I guess they're developing some of the hitting they haven't had in the past,
Right.
right?
The thing about that division too, the last I checked, 4 of the 5 teams have winning records. The Twins are, at the last count, I think they had won 12 in a row. So man, all of a sudden that division's getting a lot better, Chris. So
Yeah. Um, what do you think? And again, we're 30 games in the season, so I mean, it's probably too early to start playing our World Series tickets. But do you think they can attract? It seems like the fans will come out when they're contending,
mhm,
and we're still in the. Say it's a little cold outside. Maybe
yeah,
people aren't coming quite as much, but man, if they start to attract fans and everything,
right,
you almost get back in that vein of, yeah, the ownership isn't going to spend just to spend, but if you start attracting fans and everything,
right.
is this too early to think that, or I mean,
I
what do
don't
you
know.
think?
I think this team. I think the fans really get into this team because they're kind of like the underdog. That's a low budget team. I think they come with a chip on their shoulder, which is fun to see in Major League Baseball. So who knows? But I do think as the weather warms up and they keep winning, I think they'll draw pretty well this summer.
Well, and I say that to think like once you get to the trade deadline and everything else, I
Yeah,
mean, never expect the Indians to spend tons and tons of money, but
right.
you know, could they put themselves in a position where they might be able to try to buy a veteran or two
Yeah,
if they keep contending. I
right.
don't know.
Yeah, could be. I guess that we're gonna find out this summer.
Well, and I think there's been a lot of times. I mean, they've contended over years,
Yeah,
but it seems like they've contended with a low win amount. And like some of these other teams are so far and away better that you say, well, what's going to happen during the playoff time?
right.
But man, I mean, like you said, a lot of teams with winning records and everything. I mean, could they make arguments saying, hey, maybe this is the time to go for it?
Right. The other impressive thing about them, last year they went where they were playing teams, every major league team, where that wasn't the case. You were playing a lot more divisional games prior to last
Yeah.
year. And, those teams were rebuilding at that time. And, some of those records were inflated. Well, starting last year, you play everybody in Major League Baseball across the board. And last year, that's why some of those teams didn't have very good. But look what they're doing this year. They're playing everybody in Major League Baseball, and 4 of the 5 teams in the division have winning records. So that division is, like I said, is getting a lot better.
Yeah, and and that's the thing that gets me sometimes about Cleveland sports. I mean, Cleveland doesn't have the finances like when you look at the teams, like when you look at baseball, other teams as much as other teams.
Yeah.
So, do you sit there and say, "Hey, if we have a chance, should we go for it?" You know what I
I
mean?
think they will. I do think if they're in contention around the All-Star, the trading deadline, if they're
Yeah.
right there, I think I could see them making a move or two. Yeah, I mean, I like you said, Chris. I don't think it would be a major move, but I think it would be like a key piece that they need that they feel will put them over the top. I could see them doing something like that.
Well, and you have the money if you get more attendance and everything too,
Yeah, sure.
because that's the thing. I mean, Indians. Oh, I keep saying the Indians. Guardians have a younger team and everything. You don't want to bypass that, but if you have a chance of doing something,
Right. You strike. Yep,
take it while you can. Because if you
absolutely.
can't, it might
Couldn't
be
agree
10
more.
years they
Because
don't
that doesn't
come
happen
close.
every day.
Definitely. So, all right, yeah. So definitely check our coverage coming up. Mike's reported this in the past. We've had, Howland's pretty close to joining the
Yep.
Eastern Buckeye
Yep.
Conference. We'll have a note in when that becomes official.
Mm-hmm.
And check us out. We'll have some coverage of baseball, softball this week as we get into tournament time. So for Mike, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great day.